And my mom and my dad are calling me up and they're like, मेरी जान तूने धंधा भी चलाना है, तुझे दुनिया भी चाहिए, तुझे बैलेंस भी चाहिए, सब कुछ नहीं मिल सकता. अगर धंधा चलाना है, if you want to go onto this journey, balance भूल जाओ. At the start, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was in university, finishing up my last semester. I had a bunch of hoodies sent over to my apartment in Vancouver. Anybody that likes anything to do with the brand or follows the brand, tab Instagram बहुत different था, advertising बहुत different थी. You're able to add much more value to the product. And you're able to experiment a lot more with your marketing and create pieces that you necessarily would not have been able to create at a lower price point.
In the US, I'm sure there's strong like copyright infringement laws, etc. यहाँ पे पाकिस्तान में ये issue होता है.
F this brand, you know, like this is too expensive. Who does this guy think he is? Lame ass startup, nobody's gonna buy it. That brand was very small. Backlash बहुत ज़्यादा पाकिस्तान में आना शुरू हो गई कि यार ये क्या है, ये महंगे कपड़े, हुडीज 40-50 हज़ार रुपए की हुडी और ये you know फ्लू बहुत ज़्यादा ब्रांड्स जो हैं इस प्राइस पॉइंट पे खेल रही हैं. But शुरू में it was very tough. I remember there was a day where myself and Rasta, we were just trending on Twitter in Pakistan.
Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to another episode of How Does It Work, a podcast by ProPakistani. आज हमारे बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग गेस्ट हैं. एक बहुत बड़ा and cool and disruptive brand, रास्ता आपने सुना ही होगा. Zain Ahmad is the creative director and founder. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, brother. How's it going?
Good. Let's jump straight into your brand. And मेरा पहला सवाल ये है कि ये इतने मशहूर लोग जो आपके कपड़े पहन रहे हैं, how do you get them to wear it and what's the secret?
A lot of it is luck, but a lot of it is hard work as well. It kind of dates back to this interesting story with a friend of the brand who's also Pakistani, Cam. Cam bhai ka ek restaurant type hookah lounge ek system chal raha tha. This is, I believe, pre-COVID. And French Montana was supposed to visit over there. And he wanted to give him a gift. And we were like, yeah, we'll send you a hoodie. And we didn't make much of it. And at that time, this is like 2018 or something, or early 2019. And I was just a kid, so I didn't know what would come of this. And he ended up wearing the clothes. Wahan se mujhe realization hui ki yaar, these people are actually very accessible. And the way to sort of access them is not through very like sort of generic connections like an agent or a manager. It's through people that are involved in their life, that they do somewhat trust and that are more easily accessible. So then we, after French, we just started to just triple down on trying to do as much research as possible. We had like a hit list. हमारे पास एक पूरी hit list होती थी कि यार इसको पकड़ना है. Obviously, like most of the people we never got, but a lot of them we got through just like connecting with someone they knew, or, you know, someone that we knew that we thought would know someone in their team or something like that. That's how Riz sort of happened. Harsh Kapoor ke saath to ye scene tha ki he actually ended up following the brand. And that's how his dad ended up wearing it as well. So Harsh had a jacket, which was in his closet, and his dad was shooting for his new movie. And he was like, nice jacket. Can I wear it for the film? And so that happened. It's all been very random, and it's pretty much all down to luck and just persistence. Justin Bieber, we've tried to work with him and his team like so many times.
Do you pay these guys? Is it something like where there's like a brand deal here, or is it just
the paid route is very expensive? You're talking like it could touch like close to $1 million. Or if you're like working with the stylist. So I've never discussed this on a podcast, but some stylists, what they will do is that they will try to cut a deal with the brand and be like, we'll get your clothes on the celebrity. Even that is very expensive. You're talking like close to $100,000 or something. We've never paid. We're a startup. So that's just something that's not in our budget. And I think the clothes are so different and loud. And because of the fact that there's so many social media platforms now, a lot of these celebrities need to be everywhere like all at once, and they need new options. So that's how it sort of played in our favor, where there's this brand that is making stuff that wasn't necessarily there existing in the market, and it sort of just played in our favor. But it's luck, man. It's luck and just persistence.
And in the beginning, when you wanted to sort of do this, was the idea that you wanted to have like a foreign audience as well as the Pakistani audience? Was this like a gore ka thappa tha ke Pakistan mein bike? Was this general play at a foreign audience? Rasta, I believe, does a lot of sales here in Pakistan now as well, right?
Big chunk.
Big chunk.
Yeah.
So was the idea that we'll sell to them and that'll create the hype here, or was that also an organic sort of?
That was organic, but I realized the importance of it 2 years into the business. At the start, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was in university, finishing up my last semester. I had a bunch of hoodies sent over to my apartment in Vancouver, and that's the only place I could sell. I didn't know marketing as such. I couldn't sell in Pakistan. So the natural course of action was to tackle the market that's sort of closest to where you are. And so Vancouver was that first hub.
Okay.
So I would literally have like hoodies in my apartment and go to the post office myself and ship them out. And our initial marketing strategy was anybody that likes anything to do with the brand or follows the brand. Tab Instagram bahut different tha, advertising bahut different thi. You said you're into advertising. Apple ki privacy laws bahut different thi. It was easy to sort of reach people. So we were running ads as well. And we were reaching a ton of people. And so that's what initially garnered our initial audience. Usse haan, ek initial foreign audience bani. And we didn't start tackling Pakistan till I moved back properly, which was, I want to say, end of 2019. That's when I was like, wait, there's starting to like sort of, you know, there's this demand pipeline building in Pakistan as well. But all of our inventory is either in Canada or USA because we would just send it over there. I was like, yeah, we need to start, you know, shipping to customers here because Pakistani customers initially, unke jo orders the, wo USA se ship hote the. So yeah, this makes no sense. I can just ship it from here. So then that sort of mindset changed. But it was hard because initially we had gotten a lot of backlash in Pakistan.
Why did you get backlash in Pakistan?
High prices. So post 2019, I think this was volume 2, my second volume, I got into a big fight with my partners. I wanted to increase the prices. I wanted us to not in the future compete on price because I could see what would happen in the market. What happened was that a lot of players would come, they would be competing on price. Everybody would essentially be trying to create the same thing. And you're selling something for 5,000, I'm selling something for 5,000, he's selling it for 5,000. Everybody's going to like price each other down. And then one big player like Outfitters is going to come in and be like, screw you all, this aesthetic is working. We're going to sell these t-shirts for 1,500. So my mindset was, hey, let's go as high as we possibly can with the price. With that, there's 2 things that you accomplish. You're able to add much more value to the product. And you're able to experiment a lot more with your marketing and create pieces that you necessarily would not have been able to create at a lower price point. तो जब वो हमने किया तो बैकलैश बहुत ज़्यादा पाकिस्तान में आना शुरू हो गई कि यार ये क्या है, ये महंगे कपड़े, हुडीज 40-50 हज़ार रुपए की हुडी और ये you know फ्लां फ्लूं.
How did you sort of deal with that criticism? मतलब, I mean, बात तो सही है, as in I get that it's a luxury brand. लेकिन पाकिस्तान में किसी की तनख्वाह 50,000 रुपए
exactly, and it's
और
very,
एक हुडी 50,000 की
yeah. So we have to contest with the fact that there are brands over here that are a lot more expensive than Pakistan than Rasta, and those are within the Eastern wear category. But वो चीज़ Western wear में exist नहीं करती थी, precedent नहीं था. अब आगे अब बहुत ज़्यादा brands जो हैं इस price point पे खेल रही हैं. But शुरू में it was very tough. I remember there was a day where myself and Rasta, we were just trending on Twitter in Pakistan for literally all the wrong reasons. And my mom and my dad are calling me up and they're like, kuch nahi hota Zain beta, tension nahi leni hai. And I do not think I've been that stressed or... Why were you trending? Kya keh rahe the? You know, F this brand, you know, like this is too expensive. Who does this guy think he is? Lame ass startup, nobody's gonna buy it. That brand was very small. Like ha, you know, who the hell do these guys think they are? Did that help with sales? They kehte hain that there's no bad marketing. I mean, it fucked up my mental health. So fair enough. That day was tough to the point where I started crying and I said I don't want to do this anymore. Acha. Yeah, it got to that point where I'm getting messages and DMs from people that, you know, it's okay, kuch nahi hota, because it really fucked up with my sort of mental health in that sense. I thought that I was a villain. So wo din jo tha na, wo bada us point of view se tough tha. But to your point, the next day, the website blew up. And it was like, wait, free publicity, but at what cost? Yeah. But that's what sort of allowed me to sort of deal with this element of hate at a very young stage in our career. Usually it happens later on with people. When they're a little bigger, yeah. Yeah. So I really had to contest with that and, sort of come to terms with the fact that we're targeting a very different kind of audience.
And do you feel like, now that we're talking about that, and we'll come back to Rasta for a second, but just with the mental health stuff, is it one of those situations where at some point you have to understand that you have to disassociate you, the person, to you, the designer that makes Rasta? If someone on social media is calling you X, Y, and Z, आपको क्या ये mentally सोचना पड़ता है कि यार ये conversation वो मेरे बारे में नहीं कर रहा, वो what he thinks is the owner of a luxury brand के बारे में कर रहा है.
100%. I now am in a place where I have immense empathy for haters. So if you really break it down, Suhail94 on Instagram with 5 followers and 3 Instagram posts, ek tubal mein naha raha hai, pata nahi kya kar raha hai, that's if he's projecting that hate, it has a lot to do with the fact that there's a lot of hate probably inside him, or he doesn't understand me. So now I look at it from a place of empathy, and I don't respond to that hate. Like it comes from a place of empathy, even just sort of thinking about it. But now the hate has sort of subsided pretty much, because everything that those people said we wouldn't do, we've started to do. Because
what?
Like not fail, survive. That day on Twitter, the whole conversation was that ये 2 हफ्ते की brand है, खत्म हो जाएगी और इसके बाहर भी buyers नहीं रहेंगे. Nobody in Pakistan is going to buy this brand. Pakistan is our fastest growing market right now. 2.5x annually is what we're growing at in Pakistan. And we just did a focus group yesterday actually, and it was very heartwarming to see people from different backgrounds sort of at that table. And I asked them, why are they buying Rasta and whatnot? A lot of them were not super financially affluent. So you're seeing Rasta become a bit aspirational in Pakistan. So that was very, very happy to see. So now my main goal is, I don't care about the haters or whatnot. I just give a F about my employees and my customers. That's it. That's pretty much it.
In terms of your customers, just a weird question. But you know how like, when some people start, so there are all these memes about, for example, Gucci ka belt pehanta hai, to us tarah ka hota hai, us tarah ka kehta hai. So luxury brands have that douchebag personality ke bare mein. Look, that's not true. Obviously, like very nice people wear, douchebags can wear anything.
It has some truth to it. It does.
Because they have money, right? Yeah. So usually that leads to them being shoda and blah, blah. Do you worry about the type of person that wears Rasta? I mean, anyone can buy it, obviously. But the idea is, so it starts as this sort of, from what I remember it being a very rebellious, loud and indifferent thing. Does it eventually become that, Gucci ki belt or whatever the hell you want to call it?
Probably does. Yeah. And that's happening in Pakistan now. And we can't control it. It's part of that process. And from a business point of view, it's very good. Because if you have people buying into your brand because they need to fulfill something inside of them, then that's great for the business. I used to think about these things a lot because I'm a very creative person. Mera creative process hota hai, pehle main likhta hoon. Ek puri story hoti hai, which is like very emotional to me. And when I see people not buying my clothes for that story, it would sort of piss me off. Why aren't you buying this jacket? Iski to story ye hai, ye meri family ke andar ye hua tha aur ye hua tha, and the guy's just buying it because it's cool. So you have to dissociate from why a consumer is buying your products and why you're creating them as well. Wo bhi ek tarah se ek journey hai.
And actually, tell me another thing. So, when people make these luxury brands, now I'm sitting with you so you can answer this question. There's this consistent conversation कि जी क्वालिटी एक पॉइंट की होती है, उसके बाद जी लेट से 50,000 की जैकेट है तो 2,000 रुपये उसकी कॉस्ट होगी, क्योंकि कपड़ा होता है, वही सियालकोट का मैन्युफैक्चरर होता है, the typical Pakistani dad conversation. How much is quality a part of this? Like how much more layers can you go? So when you jack up, say, the price, does the quality also go higher, and how much higher can it go?
So in t-shirts and hoodies, it can only go insofar enough. But that comes with some important things, which is that typically in the fashion industry, you'll have either mass manufacturers or luxury players operating at gross margins between 60 and 80%.
Right.
That's something that always is going to be the case. Now, आप एक हुडी 5-6 हज़ार रुपए की कॉस्ट भी कर सकती है और एक 500-600 रुपए वाली भी कॉस्ट कर सकती है. अब उन दोनों में क्वालिटी में थोड़ा बहुत तो डिफरेंस आएगा. But that small difference it might not be a huge difference in the cost of manufacturing it, but the addition of value that you're giving to that product allows you to sort of mark it up in a way where you're able to sort of, command a higher price. This conversation changes when you do more atelier sort of stuff. So like hand embroideries, hand embellishments, hand woven fabric. Abhi jis tarah we're making a few pieces. Some of them are gonna take about 40 days to make just one piece. और उसकी cost ही शायद कोई 4-5 लाख रुपए के करीब आएगी एक पीस की, because वो हाथ का बुना हुआ कपड़ा है. उसके ऊपर 12 हमारे इन हाउस कारीगर बैठेंगे जो उसके ऊपर एम्ब्रॉयडरीज करेंगे. कहीं पे भी अगर कोई गलती हो जाए सारा कुछ ज़ाया है. So बहुत ज़्यादा इसके में स्पेक्ट्रम्स एक तरह से आ जाते हैं.
And have you ever thought about like the more affordable market? Like will you ever go, let's say all these luxury brands come out with I don't know, Armani Exchange. I know nothing about fashion, but you know what I'm saying.
So that's a concept called diffusion lines, which is sort of dying. And a lot of these diffusion lines are dying off. And the reason for that is that luxury brands are trying to consolidate because now brand image is very important. What diffusion lines do is that they disrupt the identity that your brand has created, because then you have like Ralph Lauren has so many different diffusion lines. At one point, Ralph Lauren was like the epitome of American luxury. But now it's been diluted because branding and storytelling, especially in the age of social media, has become so important. So we wouldn't create like a cheaper brand, like a diffusion line like that. We do have like a simpler offering, the core collection, the one that Timothy Chalamet was wearing as well, RASTAH logo, made in Pakistan on the back, relatively cheaper than the other pieces. My vision is that I hope this sort of inspires other people to start their own brands and start cheaper brands as well. We're going to see an ecosystem now that the next big player in this industry is not going to be a Pakistani streetwear brand. It's probably going to be someone in a hyper niche sort of a subsect that is then going to try and scale that into the masses. So imagine a group of bike riders जिनकी वो बाइक्स बेट्स लगा देते हैं ये लोग, एक पूरा सब कल्चर बना हुआ है बाइक राइडिंग का. Something like that. That's how Supreme started. Supreme was a small little skate shop in New York. It was never supposed to be $1 billion business. It was supposed to be a small little thing. So now in Pakistan, these young designers, anybody watching, I would say, hone in on your little niche and try to sell to, like the small pockets that you sort of encompass, yourself in. Like maybe like a really cool streetwear brand inspired by the soccer culture in Lahore, just as an example. Or maybe like, Model Town के अंदर cricket clubs का एक बहुत बड़ा scene है, Model Town greens, whites, maybe something like that's around that, like the sort of regional cricket. Yeah. So smaller brands, lower price point, and they have a potential to blow up. Yeah. Everybody's trying to do what we're trying to do, and that's not gonna work.
What you're talking about is like sort of like the Nike. So Nike was meant to be running shoes, and then even in the beginning when it was they were meant to be basketball shoes, then they became streetwear, and then they became sort of part of our culture.
Yeah.
And speaking to that, how important, like I sometimes wonder in this scenario, in this world, how important is who wears those clothes? So we talked about it bilkul shuru mein na ke all these people are wearing your brand. What happens if they stop wearing it? I mean, how correlated are those things in the world of fashion? So if I see, oh, chutti ka yaar, Justin Bieber pehan raha, I don't know shit about fashion. I'm like, yaar, ye bahut fat hai, maine bhi pehenna hai, right? Like you said, I don't know the story. Yeah. I don't have the comprehensive understanding. I just buy it because FOMO or whatever, The average large customer base of yours won't have the fashion sense to be able to, gauge.
Go into the weeds.
Yes.
Yeah.
So wo to follow the herd karte hain.
Yeah.
How much of that is people, right? So, can Nike sell shoes without the athlete's head?
Have you seen Shoe Dog?
Yeah, of course.
The movie?
Yeah.
So that, like, what the events of that movie just particularly describe how completely changed the trajectory of Nike within basketball. So those people are exceptionally important. Now, who those people are is changing.
That was going to be my next question.
This younger crop of people, they don't necessarily look up to celebrities as much as they used to when sort of, let's say, we were young.
Kids, yeah.
For them, their values and smaller creators and influencers that champion causes that they believe in are actually a lot more important. And that's what the data is telling us as well. Sure, mega celebrities are always going to crush the ball out of the park. You know, like a Justin or
Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
And
these guys
Zendaya or something, right?
Yeah.
Of course.
But then you have these like sort of micro creators that are building these very niche audiences. So anybody starting a brand, I would say, try to focus on those sort of micro creators and sort of go from there.
And what about all of these, let's not call them copycat brands, but there's all these brands that have come up post RASTAH that are in that luxury space. In the Eastern तो थे. और अब एक बहुत सारी competition नहीं, लेकिन एक sort of दुनिया बनती जा रही है. Is this a bad thing for you or a good thing for you?
It's an amazing thing.
Okay.
It's an amazing thing because what it does is that it isolates our brand as a luxury brand. I think for a second, like, पहले सिर्फ एक brand थी जो 30-40 हज़ार रुपए की hoodie बेच रही थी. Now that brand has significant clout, and then there's a bunch of other copycat brands that are trying to sell the same thing for 3,000-4,000. Our buyer isn't that 3,000-4,000 one, but now he is more incentivized to buy from us because it differentiates him from everybody else. So when you're wearing, let's say, a Richard Mille, and you're in a group of people wearing a Tissot, you're always going to be the big shot.
Of course.
Right? So, bad examples, Richard Mille kidhar, Tissot kidhar, but you
fair
sort of
enough,
get
I get the idea,
Yeah, so it's good for us. It's also great for the ecosystem as well. What's not good is like there's no ingenuity, there's no uniqueness, and I think people are doing it for the wrong reasons. And I know this because our office is fairly big in Lahore, and randomly people are just going to show up to the office, brand owners, ke sir, kuch advice de dein, please, ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya. And my conversations lead to pretty much very crystal clear conclusions for me, which are that, yaar, jin reasons ki wajah se ye log kar rahe hain na, they're not the right reasons. And those reasons typically are trying to sort of
catch a wave,
validation, cloud, kisi bachchi ko pasana, Turkey jana boys ke saath, thoda shashka, yo boy banna. Fashion designers and creatives now have sort of become the new rock stars of this age, and podcasters, I would say.
Which podcast? I don't know what you're talking. There is no podcaster that's rock star. I gotta continue.
It's happening, but
I don't.
but yeah. So these kids are doing it for the wrong reasons, and I tell them that, yaar, you need fucking perseverance. You need patience. You need so much grit. You're gonna get beat the fuck down, and I'm sorry, I'm swearing so much.
No, go for it.
You need a lot of perseverance and patience, because if you don't have that, all those fake things that you're trying to sort of accomplish, those aren't enough reasons for you to stay in the game. You're going to quit. And that's usually what happens. If you're doing it for the right reasons, then you stay longer in the game.
Not to be like ultra critical or anything. I also find that to be like a generation thing, like the Gen Z. So I work with a lot of younger people, right?
Don't even get me started.
It's different, right?
How old are you?
I am 33.
Okay.
And a lot of the people in the agency that I work in ProPakistani, they're a lot younger than me.
Yeah.
So they're 23, 24, 25. They are the older ones. But you see a distinct difference in today's fresh grad. And when I started 10 years ago, the people I was hiring that were fresh grads, their personalities are different. Their motivations are different. Their perseverance or delaying of gratification is different. And I think a lot of that is not down to them. It's just down to what they're used to, right? Social media, instant gratification, like everything. How old are you?
I'm 29.
Yeah. So we're similar age, right?
Yeah.
So हम उस ज़माने के, at least मैं उस ज़माने का dial-up internet, movie download की, घंटा wait की, like everything was a process. You didn't get it instantly, right? Now you get everything instantly, and I think that takes away from your patience and ability.
Bro, COVID, COVID, you know, like
had a massive effect, I think.
Massive effect. And I did like this webinar thing a couple of years back, and this kid was trying to start a brand, and I was like, I asked him, what's the most important thing for you? And he's like, balance. I was like, मेरी जान तूने धंधा भी चलाना है, तुझे दुनिया भी चाहिए, तुझे बैलेंस भी चाहिए, सब कुछ नहीं मिल सकता. अगर धंधा चलाना है, if you want to go on to this journey, बैलेंस भूल जाओ.
और आप डे 1 पे तो नहीं बैलेंस की बात कर सकते ना. यू टॉक 2 decades later आप बात करो बैलेंस की. अभी तो आपने कुछ किया ही नहीं है. बैलेंस किस चीज़ का?
Zero balance, bro.
No, and I think even the problem is खैर that's a whole other podcast. Let's क्योंकि I have a lot of opinions on that.
Yeah.
But let's go back to RASTAH, which we're here for.
Yeah.
So you're
That's
talking
my
about
ADHD.
It's mine too, and that's a scary thing. तो मैं कह रहा था कि यार आप बात कर रहे थे ना अभी कि एक 5,000 का ब्रांड, एक 50,000 का ब्रांड, और वो फिर it sticks out. Piracy is a thing everywhere, especially here, right? Here everything is fake, right? A lot of fake goods are here. Has RASTAH started having that issue where people are copying and just so like I go to a guy,
piracy.
Blatant piracy. बस वही RASTAH की शर्ट बनाई, वही exact logo पीछे made in Pakistan.
Yeah, we've had to send a lot of like cease and desist notices.
And does that work here? Because I mean, you're if in the US, I'm sure there's strong like copyright infringement laws, etc. यहाँ पे पाकिस्तान में ये issue होता है?
It does, but like, to what extent can you make it work? So if it's like, so अभी recently एक university के 2 बच्चे थे, wanted to make some money, you know, पता नहीं कौन सी university थी, और मैंने you know cease and desist तो भेज दिया, and they were like website भी बंद हो गई, but फिर भी WhatsApp नंबर पे अगर कोई कॉल करें, हाँ हेलो चाहिए, हाँ मिल जाएगी, किधर आना है, चले मैं आ रहा हूँ, पैसे साइड पे रखिएगा. अब वो एड्रेस जो था ना मेरे ऑफिस का एड्रेस था. वो बच्चे आए हैं, मेरी टीम भी बैठी है, मैं भी बैठा हूँ. मैंने कहा यार क्या कर रहे हो, कर क्या रहे हो? एंड देन देयर लाइक सर नहीं प्लीज़ माफ़ कर दें, बस पैसे बनाने थे साइड पे. अच्छा यार जस्ट डोंट डू इट अगैन. एंड देन अगैन कुछ लोग डर जाते हैं, कुछ नहीं डरते, बट दैट इज़ समथिंग दैट इज़ हैपनिंग. देयर इज बेनिफिट्स टू इट फॉर अस, बट इफ इट गेट्स आउट ऑफ हैंड then it's sort of like okay, it's not a good thing.
कुछ हद तक तो cannibalize होगा ना. Let's say there is an aspirational buyer. Yeah, he starts buying it for 2K and no one can tell the difference. And then,
by the way, the product was so bad.
Okay, so they can't tell the difference. But is that to your trained eye, or could anyone tell the difference?
I feel like you could tell the difference as well.
I mean, I'm pretty shit at this. So
you could tell the difference. Trust me. Sticker print हुआ हुआ था.
अच्छा ठीक है. मतलब बिल्कुल ही जाली थी.
हाँ, और वो पता नहीं किस तरह का कपड़ा.
Because there are some good knockoffs. Like sometimes I look at like some like Pakistan में especially जो बनते हैं, where I'm like I don't know. Like I saw this. There's a guest on the podcast and he was wearing these shoes and he's like they're fake, and I swear to God I just couldn't, like, you know, they just looked so real, like I couldn't tell. Achha, talk to me about the economy aaj, right? So unfortunately worldwide recession, Pakistan is no different. Pakistan to khair mashallah along with worldwide recession, whatever the hell is going on, aapko to pata hai mujhse behtar. So I was reading about this thing and I wanted to talk to you about it, which is called the lipstick effect.
Okay.
तो होता क्या है कि जब रिसेशंस आते हैं, या लेट्स से मैं अपना जॉब लूज़ कर देता हूँ, या इकोनॉमिक डाउन टर्न, जो भी ऐसी चीज़ें आती हैं, तो लेट्स से पहले मैं 3 दफ़ा US की ट्रिप मार रहा था साल में. अब वो 3 से 2 हो जाता है, 2 से 1 हो जाता है, जो भी आपके एक एडजस्टमेंट लेवल डाउन करते हैं आप. अच्छा, what tends to happen in those scenarios is, in those recessions, is not that you stop spending the money. You spend the money, you just spend it differently.
Yeah.
So जो lipstick effect है is essentially, for example, Bollywood does really well in a recession.
Okay.
Coffee shops do really well in a recession.
Yeah.
Fancy food does really well in a recession. Apparently so does fashion, and उसकी वजह ये है कि I treat myself कि यार अच्छा चलो तुम नहीं जा पाए, जाओगे लंदन, चलो कोई नहीं, ये रास्ता की शर्ट ले लो. Yeah, you know, like let's say your wife was going to take you on a honeymoon trip or somewhere and she couldn't. Now she's just, so what she ends up doing is she doesn't want to justify it with no purchase. She has to do a purchase. So apparently this happened a lot in COVID as well. People had extra cash because they couldn't travel, they couldn't
also stimulus checks.
Yeah, so they had stimulus checks. So what they ended up doing was purchasing things that they felt would give them happiness in a time where they couldn't afford. Maybe, so for example, यार maybe Mercedes की sale पाकिस्तान में low होगी, I don't know. Maybe Lamborghini की sale worldwide low होगी because it's a very high ticket item, right? Yeah. Even though it's a high ticket item in fashion, is not a high ticket item overall. So what I'm trying to understand is that true, or is that just some theory that...
I think it has some truth to it. What we've seen, what the data is sort of telling us, is that average order values have dropped. Purchase frequency for customers has dropped, but number of transactions for us at least are up 2.5x.
So new users are coming.
Yeah. New customers are definitely coming. And they're buying again as well. But let's say if you were buying 3 times a year, you might be buying 2 times a year now. COVID was very different. हमने New York में pop-up की थी right after COVID. There were people that were spending racks. And we thought this was the norm. We come back 2 years later and people aren't spending as much. Number of users utne hain, but they're not spending as much. They're a lot more tight-lipped. So that post-COVID phenomena, especially in some of those blue states like you talked about, wo bahut, like that was crazy. I had never seen anything like that. But ab bhi jo ho raha hai, it's very interesting. For the US, it's going to be, I think, not for small businesses like us, but for businesses that are heavily reliant on financing or debt, it's going to be a very tricky 6 months because interest rates are so high.
Yeah, they're through the roof.
We were looking to raise money and we sort of pulled the plug on that.
That's
because we weren't getting the right valuations that we would have wanted.
And you probably wouldn't at this stage, would you?
No, bilkul bhi nahi.
Achha, talk to me about this. Why, you mentioned pop-up stores, so I always thought about this. Why don't you have these physicals, like these nice big physical stores? Like I can see it in my head.
I love that you brought that up.
Yeah,
that was one of the things that we discussed in yesterday's focus groups as well, where we had a bunch of these buyers and we showed them a bunch of these different products, t-shirts and hoodies alada. A t-shirt and hoodie is very easy to buy online. A woven shirt or a nice intricate jacket is very hard to buy online.
Yeah, you don't want to go see it, feel it. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think COVID ke duran na ek badi misconceptions thi ki yaar e-commerce is going to kill, physical retail. It's far from it. It's far from it. We're going to open stores.
You should open stores.
We're just like sort of trying to get as much data to see if those stores can not just be profitable and not just profitable on the first purchase. So typically aapki customer acquisition cost first purchase bit badi high hoti hai, you're losing money. We want to see if that first purchase is profitable and then sort of go from there, and how our customer lifetime value is changing and whatnot, like looking at everything. So ab hum New York mein ek mahine ki pop-up kar rahe hain. Pehle kabhi nahi kiya. So it's going to be a month-long pop-up and we're going to see that once our existing users come in the first week aur unki half-life jaise kam hoti jati hai, how many new users are we able to bring in organically and just through foot traffic, and are we able to still turn a profit on the sort of operating expenses and the capital expenses of
that location.
Yes. And then we're probably going to open a store in New York. And then we're going to open a store in Pakistan. Now you might be thinking, why not Pakistan first and why?
No, but that makes sense. Right? And also, like, if you're going to open flagship, New York would be...
That would be a dream.
The perfect flagship, right?
That would be like... It's kind of like any sort of...
Fashion brand, I think. Any brand, actually, just... Full stop.
Or even just like for South Asians, because we typically move away from Pakistan to settle abroad. We're going to be leaving a mark over there, but we're still going to be here. So for me, that's like the important part of it. Nobody's really done it that way. London mein bahut zyada in brands, kuch Pakistani brands hain jinhone khole hain, but not in this way, not in the streetwear sort of space.
That leads me to another interesting question, and ek do aur hi puchunga, then I'll let you go. I also have to get going, but why did you move back to Pakistan? So I thought about this when you mentioned you're living in Vancouver, you're selling this stuff, it's taking off, paisa ban raha hai. Why did you come back?
Yeah, mere paas to Canadian citizenship bhi hai. So for me, that wasn't the important thing. I was obsessed. I was obsessed with making this thing work. And I knew that for it to work, I needed to be in Pakistan. And I needed to immerse myself within that process. And that has probably been the best decision. Every single day I wake up with this mindset of obsession that every single day we're going to be the best brand, not just in Pakistan or South Asia, but in Asia. And for that obsession to take over, you need to be in the midst of the chaos and just sort of under the nose of everything that's happening. So that's why I moved back.
And in terms of future plans, right? You know how RASTAH has now become like the streetwear hip cool thing.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought of doing some sort of like a crossover, whether that's, I don't know, something like a luxury brand in the US like Gucci or something, or even something here with like a Khadi, like a Eastern big boy. Will we see some sort of crossovers?
There's been talks with some brands I can't take names.
Yeah.
One of them you mentioned in this conversation.
Fair enough.
I'll let the audience guess. Yeah. But that is something that needs to happen. That is what takes us to the next level. And that would have to be like an international big brand, like an Adidas, Nike or whatnot. We're coming out with a sneaker. So that's gonna open up the pavilion to just something completely new for us. Because the sneaker world is very different. Fashion mein trends 6 mahine baad change hote hain. Sneakers mein typically last about half a decade or so. And people are more willing to spend money
on sneakers.
So the goal for me is to get into footwear, accessories, and then use that as a vehicle to pitch collaborations to bigger organizations. For them, those are more profitable ventures.
Of course.
Because they're more culturally significant as well. Lifetime bhi unki zyada hai.
Bilkul. Acha, last question.
Yes.
And then I'll let you go. So we've talked about collaborations, physical stores, all of those things. You mentioned in the beginning that you didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah, I still don't know. I'm still winging it.
I was going to ask you that, right? So how much of this is... So when people talk to me about their careers and stuff, I always meet one of two people.
Yeah.
I mean, I meet all kinds, but two spectrums.
Yeah.
ठीक है? एक स्पेक्ट्रम वो होता है जो कहता है यार मुझे एग्जैक्टली पता है मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ, मैं अगले 5 साल में क्या करूँगा, 8 साल में क्या करूँगा, ऐसे करूँगा, वैसे करूँगा. अब वो he has an idea. मैं ये नहीं कह रहा कि वो कर नहीं कर रहा, उसका प्लान होगा, लेकिन obviously it's that Mike Tyson quote, right? Like everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face. So then there's another side which I think I'm on, where I'm like, listen, I have a vague idea कि मैं इधर जाना चाह रहा हूँ कहीं इस एरिया में. अब वो मैं इधर से इस तरह करके जाऊंगा या मैं सीधा जाऊंगा, आई कांट टेल यू बिकॉज देर आर socio-economic problems, there are 100 other things that are not in my control, plus also I don't know, right? I mean, I kind of feel like I have a vague idea, but the rest is a day-to-day winging of it, right? Of course you plan, and of course you have structure to what you're doing, but my point is, which camp would you say you are in?
I would say I'm more leaning towards the camp that you're in, maybe somewhere in the middle. People on the very far left of that camp, on the opposite end of the spectrum, उनमें एक चीज़ ये कि कभी कभार ना अना और गरूर आ जाता है, और जब अना आ जाए, ईगो आ जाए इंसान में, तो वो ब्लाइंड हो जाता है. जब आपको ऐसे लग रहा हो कि मुझे एग्जैक्टली हर चीज़ पता है और मैंने क्या करनी है, then you're sort of blindsided. So I have this vision of where I want this to be, but I'm also so grounded. I tell my team this every single day, that the day you guys develop an ego, don't fucking walk into the office. Get out. You have to do this with zero ego, and the only way you can do that is through what you just said, where you have this idea of what you want to do, but you're always willing to learn and sort of process where it sort of needs to go. And any young creative tuning in, no ego, don't chase fame. Fame is the worst thing. People that end up chasing, I've seen it, man. I've seen people that try to chase fame, nosedive, done, dusted. I hate fame. That's one thing that I would never, if it's a byproduct of what I do, fine. But I'm a very introverted person. I'd like to keep to myself. I wouldn't want it to become my life. So anybody tuning in, these are all the wrong reasons to do what you're doing. Do it because you love it. Do it because you want, it's an act of service. Do it because maybe your parents had a very hard time and now you need to give them the life that, you know, they were not maybe able to give you, whatever it is. But there needs to be like a higher North Star to what you do.
I think that's a great place to leave it. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Boss, thank you.
Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed our content, please do subscribe to our channel, and we will see you for the next podcast.